Hi and welcome to another one of my base tours. This time I'm going to show you around my base here on Epsilon, one of the official servers. I decided to start playing on one of the official servers since there's more people there and it's more interesting to play on a server where you can interact and help each other and laugh at each other's mistakes and commiserate on each other's explosions. Anyways, the biome I based in is this dead swamp here, and the reason I chose a dead swamp was twofold. One, it's flat. Two, I saw some tin when I was exploring. I was like, oh, tin's pretty important. We got to stop here. It was in a crater that was on the other side of my base that's now covered over, but I'll show you a little bit of the interior of it when we get down inside the base. This is the view here from the northeast. As you can tell, I've got a Tinker's Construct smeltery here. It's got a guest inside of it, a regenerating Enderman that continually produces ender pearls for me. So as you can see in here, it's all full of liquid ender. And then whenever I need some, I just start the process, and I've got hundreds of them here. Um, the next thing that you'll see here are my crossbreeding plots here. This is where I'm crossbreeding the sugar canes. Sorry, these are now stickweed. So stickweed to make better stickweed and getting other um, mutations out of it that I use for other things. But I like doing it this way instead of the way that's recommended, so I can basically plant and forget. If you look here, when you plant them here, I'm only crossing these two, so I'm not crossing across here. So if this guy decides to become a weed and then I don't come back in time, then I only use one or both of these. And it's a pretty low intensity way of getting your stats up, especially when you're just starting out with just vanilla sugar canes. You can just do this in an area and just fire and forget and not worry about it. I'm using the Z-Tones garden soil here, so it doesn't have to be close to the water. As you can see, I'm pretty far away here, and I can still plant and raise crops. This area here is my other one of the other areas I have set up for crossbreeding. As you can see, this is a little more intensive crossbreeding area. Since this is if you forget about it, your whole field will turn into weeds. You have to sit here and babysit it a lot. Or what I do is set a timer every 5 to 10 minutes. I'll come by and take a look. This is sugar cane. This here is pyrolucium, which I'm trying to make for some manganese multiplication. And this here is ferro for multiplying iron and vanadium magnetite. You can do both of those. You can also do meteoric iron, which is pretty nice. When you come back with crushed meteoric iron from the moon, you can 4x it with the ferro crops. These here are some sapphires I used to get some aluminum back in the beginning. And these other crops are just various things. This is lily pads, which I used originally for this part of it before I used the Z-Tones dirt. You can see here this is normal dirt for these crops. And I put the lily pads on top of the water so I can walk around without falling in all the time. This here is just Aurelia, which is a gold crop, which you can use to 4x gold and also turn magnetite into gold ore, which is pretty interesting. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but I intend to use it. Over here, this is corium, which is a crop that produces leather, so that way I don't have to go and slaughter cows all the time or horses to get leather. And then this here is the magic metal berries, which in this case they produce, if you can see down there, I have an iron block. They'll produce thaumium for me, which I'm going to save up for when I get started on Thaumcraft, probably next year. These other crops are, I've been harvesting marble dust to use for calcite, which can be used for oxygen, but I'm not really using that anymore, so I'll probably get rid of these and replace them with something else. This is red granite, which is useful later on to get uranium, and then I had black granite here earlier that I was using to get biotite to stockpile fluorine, but I had an accident and it all got turned into weeds. So that's as I said, you got to pay close attention, otherwise everything turns to weeds. So that's why that's there now. These little boxes here are just for storing the IC2 crops. What I normally do is once a crop happens, I immediately spade it, and then if I get a seed bag, great, I'll go and analyze it, and then come back down and store it in the appropriate bin. So up here is the higher stats crops. So these are like in the 20s. I usually add the growth and the gain together to get a feel for how valuable it is. So these are all tend to be in the 20s or 20s and up. So this is 22, for example. My sugar beets aren't quite as high. They're only at the best at around the 15 or so. But as you can see, the 15 is plenty for sugar beets. I'll show you the sugar production field I have over here by my launch pad. So over here you can see there's all my excess sugar beets have crap stats come over here, as well as some old sugar canes that I were using. The sugar beets are better because you can use an extractor to get the sugar out of them, and you get 8 sugar per sugar beet, versus the macerator on the sugar canes, which only gives you 1, and it also takes a really long time. The extractor is much faster, so you can get sugar much quicker. Let me show you my primary IC2 crops production is up here. This is actually right above my base. As you can see on the map, I'm still inside my base. I'm just at a really high altitude. Unfortunately, I read the the information wrong. You only really need to be above 124 in order to get the best air stat for your crops. So going up here at 240 was totally unnecessary. Anyways, up here I've got copper, nickel, lead. Here's my main iron production crops. You know, you get little iron leaves to use for things, and then some string and a bunch of other crops down here. I've got gas tiers, which are really handy, so I don't even have to go around killing gas for anything. I can use that later for salt. This here is for making mercury and quicksilver. And then over here I've got these are blaze rods, or blaze reed, which you get blaze powder and blaze rods. And these right here are some dyes. For Project Red, you need a lot of dyes, so I've been starting to create plots for different dye flowers, so I can you know, start stockpiling those. One thing I have found is that red wheat, which is what they recommend to do to get redstone, is actually a pain in the ass to get, for one, and two, the growth rate is really slow. So instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is grow these glow flowers, which for one, they grow really fast, and two, when you centrifuge them, you get gold and redstone. So it's kind of a big benefit on both sides. The only problem is the centrifuge. You need to do an MV centrifuge, and you also need to send them through an extractor first to get the glowstone, and then centrifuge to get the redstone and gold. Here's my silver crop that gives me the silver leaves, and this right here is a really important field for me. Is a galvania. It also has some history. I'll explain that there in a second. This galvania is used with sphalerite or zinc to get you a 4x multiplier on those. Now the reason that's important is sphalerite is where you get your gallium in the early game, and so using these leaves you can get 4 times the gallium from the same amount of sphalerite, which is really handy. Especially when you get to HV, you get the HV macerator, so you get 4 times the sphalerite to stick into there, and you get a lot more gallium. I've been trading people on the server for goods and services. Now what you see here is I've got a reservoir that's providing water to each of these tanks, and these tanks then go into the crop matrons that are underneath it. And the crop matrons are powered by the combustion generators beneath them. So that's fine, except in case you didn't notice, this one right here doesn't exist. It's actually been replaced 3 times because inevitably every time I go to change something, you'll see how these ones right here, the wire comes up. This actually protects that generator from rain. So since the rain hits the wire, it doesn't explode, right? Well, when I was over here working on this, like every time I do it, I either forget the wire or the wire's not there, and then it starts raining and the generator catches on fire and explodes. So I've replaced the crop matron and the generator on this field like 4 times, and I'm just like, I'm not even going to bother anymore. These grow plenty fast without fertilizer or water, so I'm just going to leave it alone. One thing, these will grow with just water, but if you want to grow a little bit faster, you can throw in the fertilizer as well. It goes through it fairly fast, which is kind of a disappointment. But as you can see, these are already starting to grow back up. That's one other advantage for the glow flowers, that they grow really, really fast compared to the redstone. So once we get a seed bag, what we do, I don't have any, but we can take one that's already been done. So once you get a seed bag, I bring it over here, and I send it through my scanner, and the scanner will scan it and then spit it out into this bin over here. As you can see, I've got a bunch of other seeds that I've been working with. These are all basically the junk seeds that are just not worth keeping. Um, anyways, that's it pretty much for this area here. I was planning on using a new layer for the redstone or the red wheat, but considering how pathetically slow and everything it is, and hey, look, I got stuff. It's just not that impressive to me. So yeah, I didn't even get any redstone from that one in that case. So I'm probably gonna put something else here. I'll probably put more glow flowers or something to increase my redstone production. Anyway, so back down to the surface. This here is my launch pad for going to the moon and other places. As you can see, I kind of tried to model it after the launch pads um, in NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Got a little the little blast area down here with the running water to cool the rocket exhaust and keep it from damaging the launch pad, and nice little bricks and everything. And the pad and the fuel loader and etc. here. One thing I did do when I set up my rocket is I made sure to clear out all the stupid clouds up in the air above it, because that's a potential problem. Is if someone's rocket hits a cloud, you may run out of gas before you get through it, and that would be sad. As you can also see, that right there is my actually, I don't think that is, but anyways, further up here is my crop field. Can't see it from this far away. Yeah, there you can start to see the edges of it. That's the bottom area, and there's the other part of it. Let's see. Oh, one other important crop here is this darkwood, which when you put it through a chemical plant, it'll produce fertilizer for you. So I can use this here with some apatite and get a bunch of bonus fertilizer without having to spend as much effort. Over here is my trees for benzene. Oh, this right here is my little animal farm. Not really using them for much of anything right now. Just stockpiling the eggs for later. Got a few thousand eggs. A couple of these animal traps. They work a little bit. They're not really great, but they're good enough. I had a rose rooster over here that plants the roses and gives red dye, but apparently he didn't make it and disappeared. Hey, over there, how you doing? um, anyways, this here is my benzene trees. So inside of there, which let's see if we can get inside and take a look. I've got a Ender IO farming station. I was gonna regret this. Yeah, it's just what I need. A bunch of crap. So the farming station here has been upgraded and provides saplings and wood and stuff like that to my benzene setup. Right now I have it shut off because I've got enough stockpile that it was just a waste having it to make them. This right here is the benzene setup. As you can see, there's a advanced coke oven here. So I don't get any byproducts from a pyrolyze, but as you can see, this thing is pretty fast. It's about a second or so per charcoal. And that alone is enough to drive all these fluid extractors. You want to make sure to use basic fluid extractors, because if you use ones that are rated too high, you'll actually not produce enough positive power. So I use basic fluid extractors, and they all feed into this advanced distillery here. So it's an MV distillery. As you can see, it keeps up with it. It can use it up just as fast as these guys can make it. Here's the generator, the gas turbine that runs the whole system here. You can see here there's a transformer to power these guys, because they're fairly low power. They just need a little bit of time, about 6 seconds apiece. Actually, before we go, let's go ahead and go downstairs real quick and then we'll come back up. So this here is the rest of it. As you can see, I've actually expanded quite a bit. I've got 4 more coke ovens down here, going into another 12 fluid extractors. And then here, this one right here does just benzene. So the one upstairs does benzene, this one does benzene, and it gets dumped into this super tank here. And then on the other side, this string here actually does toluene. So this one here outputs toluene into this super tank here. So I'm getting pretty high on that. I can use that for explosives and whatnot. Over here is the bottom area for that Ender IO setup. As you can see, the gas generator here is off because I got way too much stockpiled right now. And this is a reservoir to feed to the sprinklers up above to make those trees grow really fast. As you can see, we've got 3,000 stacks of wood and 500 stacks of saplings. The saplings I turn into ethanol for biodiesel production, but most of the saplings, or most of the wood stays here for this stuff. Although there is some that goes to over here to my LV setup. So over here in the LV setup, I also take the same wood and send it to a centrifuge to make methane, and that's to get another source of hydrogen gas, because that's used by a lot of processes such as cracking and desulfuring, and also ammonia production. So this here is my LV floor. As you can see, I've got the usual stockpile of ores on the walls here, and this area here used to be ore berries, but I took it all out, and this is where I crossed my red wheat, but I'm probably gonna put something else here. I don't know. I haven't figured out yet. These are the usual rack of LV machines. The mixer, assembler. This is a basic extruder, which is good for cells and plastic sheets, pretty much, and the lathe and whatnot. This is the dust compression. So small dusts come on this side, and tiny dusts come on this side and go through the type filter, super buffer, and then the packager here to end up inside this here, where I get all of the tiny dusts and small dusts from processing. There used to be a bunch of other machines, but they've all been migrated to the automation room next door, which I'll show you in a second. This here is the leftover circuit assembling machine. I've got a clean room that handles all my circuit duties right now. This is pretty much for only Project Red circuit creation. So all the output from this and the forming press next door come into here, where I've got my different Project Red circuits and transport pipes and parts for making them. Let's see, these are just usual machines. A distillery. I think this is for hydrofluoric acid. Yeah, hydrochloric acid. A polarizer and whatnot. This basic sifting machine has been superseded by a sifter down there. We'll go take a look at that in a few minutes. And as I said, this centrifuge runs continuously just to make methane. Now this next room here is my automation room. It's mostly LV machines, but it also has some MV machines there in the back. So these LV machines here, just basic macerators for doing sugar canes and taking wrought iron ingots and turning them into dust so I can put them into the EBF, that kind of thing. And then I've got a couple these dual compressors that just for compressing various things that need done. This chemical reactor right here is where I process the leaves. So you can see here I've got coppin fibers and malachite ore that's being done to make extra copper. Let's see, have we got anything interesting here? Let's see, vanadium, magnetite, and some ferro. So we'll get that. So it needs a little bit of water and a little bit of that, and it comes out here. As you can see, I've got a bunch of ores that have been multiplied up. So for each crushed ore, I get 4 times on the output. So it's pretty nice. And then over here, I've got the extractor. So this is where the glow flowers go. well as, I don't see any. Did we get some? Yeah, so there's more glow flowers, and the shimmer leaves also go into here. Now the glow flowers, you have to do them 2 at a time, but the shimmer leaf you only have to do 1, so I generally do those first. Oh, along with the sugar. The sugar beet should go there as well. And that's it for that. And then here's where you can see the first bit of my Project Red automation. These right here are what crack fuel. This front one does hydrocracking, so it uses hydrogen cells, these hydrogen cells here. And then this one right here is the steam cracking, so it uses steam that's generated with a boiler, stored here, and then canned here. I've got other videos that explain how the Project Red system works. So I'm not really going to discuss that too much in this one. If you're interested, you can see those. I will show the refinery because it's pretty cool to watch that go. This little setup right here accepts the hydrogen sulfide from the desulfuring in the back and mixes it with water. Looks like actually it's out of water. So let's get that going. And then as each cell gets completed, you'll see there came in another hydrogen sulfide. It shoots out the empties. And then they come into the distillery here to go into the super tank for storage sulfuric acid. These two here are my 2 wire assemblers. It gets really annoying if you only have 1 assembler to try to keep moving fluids around. It's a lot more convenient now that we have the hand pump, but even so, I like setting up assemblers to automate the process of creating the wires, so I can just come by, dump in some wires, and they just come out here in the back. I'm still working on the styrene butadiene rubber, so that's why this assembler here doesn't have anything in it yet, but it'll get one in a second. Did I build the wrong thing? That's a disassembler. That's alright. Well, I guess I did something wrong there. Huh, interesting. I guess I'll stick that over here somewhere. Yeah, deal with that later. I guess I made the wrong thing. I don't know how that happened. Anyways, the next thing back here, this is where I get my fluids from. So the water here is electrolyzed. There's actually 2 of them. There's a twin down there and this one here. And they get fed into the super tank for hydrogen and oxygen. This over here is a compressor and centrifuge to get nitrogen and oxygen, because at the time I needed extra oxygen, but now I'm getting so much I'll probably shut this off, and I don't need very much nitrogen since I'm not running a pyrolyze to get charcoal byproducts. Let's see, in this area back here I've got a couple different setups. This one right here is my original. At first this was just for light fuel, this left half here. You put the sulfuric light fuel here, it gets desulfured and then stored here. This right half takes oil sands ore, centrifuges it to get a heavy oil, and then desulfurs it and then puts it into the mixer, and then they mix together. What is up with that? That must be because the hydrogen sulfide is all full. That's probably why. Let me go ahead and let me pull these out. Yeah, let's see, they're gonna start zipping back this way. Yeah, don't ever let your system go empty or get full, because then it causes a lot of problems. Yeah, it's already out of water again. I'll have to get more water. Let me do that real quick. Well, look at that, getting low on water. Guess covering up all my water thawing tanks, not such a smart idea. Come on, server, stop lagging out. I did the wrong one. Here we go. There. All right, so that should, yeah, those guys are all cleared out now. So anyways, the heavy fuel comes from the right, the light fuel from the left. They get in the mixer and they make diesel. So this is my diesel fuel here, and I have a cetane set up for biofuels. I'll show you here in a second. So this is just stored right now in case I need extra or something runs out. On the left side over here, I've got another, this is just a general purpose desulfuring setup, so whatever needs desulfuring, I can send it over here. In this case, I got a bunch of refinery gas that I'm going to use as the fuel for, I'm using it as a fuel right now for the clean room. Some of my other machines use benzene, and some of them use liquid propane, just because I got so much excess now, I might as well use it. The liquid propane, the LPG, comes from this guy here. This centrifuge is also my centrifuge for glowstone, so that's why I got all this redstone and gold back behind here. And it's also my liquid air centrifuge, so it's got like 3 different jobs that it does depending upon the mood I'm in. So I've been centrifuging liquid air for a while now to get the argon and the noble gases that I'll be processing for later on. But generally it's for glowstone and liquid propane gas. Let's see. So the rest of the automation happens over here. You see the pipe goes through here. This is the excess overflow, so extra oxygen and empty cells come from here and go to there when they're extra. These setups in here are automatic. This is an automatic ethylene setup. So I dump in sulfuric naphtha here, desulfurs it, steam cracks it, distills it, and then it stores the ethylene in a tank here so I can pull it out and use it for other purposes. Otherwise, it gets reacted with oxygen here to make ethylene. So I've got polyethylene here for my other assemblers and for making pipes and that kind of thing. On the other side over here, it's kind of ironic because this goes from this way to that way, but this one here goes from this way to this way. This is my nitric acid production facility. So I make my ammonia over on this side with my HV setup, and then I drop the ammonia in here, and it's automated with oxygen to turn it into nitric acid. So that's pretty nice because I don't have to sit here and feed cells into reactors. It just pushes it to the right automatically for me. This is where I take the blocks and apatite and make it into fertilizer, but it needs water. I've been electrolyzing all the water. That's why I'm out of water right now. The other big automated setup I have is in here. I've got 2 parts to this. This part over here, this is where the liquid propane gas comes in. This takes saplings and it converts them via the forestry fermenter and still into ethanol. The ethanol has 2 purposes. Earlier on, I was using a dehydrator to turn it into ethylene, but right now I'm just using it as a part of the mixing for biodiesel. So the ethanol is just used for biodiesel right now. The other thing I have is this setup here. This is another dehydrator that I use with ethyl benzene to make styrene. So I've got a bunch of styrene saved up for making the rubber. Let's see. The next area is my MV room here. So these are all my MV machines, hence all the blue machines. The usual gang of idiots, I guess. The extruder, electrolyzer, chemical reactor, and whatnot. I don't think, they're not really any automation or anything here. They're just the usual machines. This is the scanner that I use for trees. So you can see I've got a bunch of different trees crossbred and with different stats and stuff back here. And then this is my printer. So I also use the scanner for when I do seismic prospecting, and then I use the printer to print the books. I've got a little map room that I created. I'll show you real quick over here. So back over here I have a little hidden map room, and you can see like here are the different prospecting data and then stuff like this. Yeah, okay, so they got it. Let's see what else. So that's the MV area. This area down here is my clean room. So here it's powered off of refinery gas, as I said before. It's got a little recorder there. Oop, it's got a problem, so I guess best I gotta go fix it. Let's go find out what the problem is here. Something is stuck. Wow, we better get that something unstuck. Come on. Yeah, it's still stuck. Let's get out. Let's try the mallet. Let's try this stuff again. Let's see. Just do them all. Alright, let's see. Did I get it or do I need to? There we go. Back to perfection. So this is my clean room. I've got the power's provided from the outside, but one thing that I was very careful of this time is that I labeled which is which. I started with HV, and I made sure that each assembler has a specific uh, voltage and stuff on it, so that way I know which is which. Because I've had problems with causing explosions before, as people on the Discord will know. So this way, instead of having to replace it and tear it out, I just leave the machines there, and I can use them for, like, this can be used for low priority stuff that saves a little bit of energy, and this can be used for the higher tier stuff. It's large enough where I can put more machines up above it, or even the room has enough space where I can push the ceiling up a little bit higher to add more machines if necessary. The next area is my HV area and future EV area. So this is my current HV area. As you can see, I don't have as many machines because as you rank up, you don't need as you tier up, you don't need as many machines. But you got to have the universal macerator. That's one of the most important machines, as well as the chemical reactor, the assembler. This assembler, I always just leave it full of polyethylene just because it's needed for a lot of recipes. And then back here, I've got some Ender IO stuff. This is where I recharge my my armor and whatnot, so I can charge it back up again. And over here I store my XP. Let's see, and then back over here is where I'm going to put the EV room. When we go back up to the surface, I'll show with the plans that's going to happen there. I'm going to try do something kind of stupid just for fun. I'm going to make a rail line to bring EU from a hydroelectric station over to here. Let's get our armor back on. Okay, this is my little downstairs bedroom. And I'll get enough people on right now. Now this area down here is my main multi-block area. So as you can see here are my famous 10 brick blast furnaces for producing a lot of different ingots from the impure ores. Like the malachite will give you 50% more. I do it this way because I got tons of charcoal. What do I care if it takes a little longer? These here are my two EBFs. They're both right now operating off of HV energy hatches, so I can do titanium and whatnot on these. Here's the vacuum freezer. I think it's got titanium ingots in it right now. And then, as you can see, it's a little bit close to my living space. It's not too bad, but it's not hasn't really been a problem unless I'm actually in the room. This here is my refinery setup. So I've got the oil, hydrocrack, and steam crack refineries all set up here. So we can look around. You can see they're not on right now. I don't have any resources in the second two, but there should be oil there. So the cells will come out of the oil refinery, and they come into here into these 4 tanks, the sulfuric tanks, and then the empty cell comes into here. And when the cell gets pulled out, so you can see each one has 2. Let's see which one's going to pop first. It's going to be erased. Okay, here it goes. So see, there he goes. So he just went out. He's going to go to the sulfuric gas, bink, and then he comes back in empty. And because we were watching him, we didn't see him, but that one requested an empty from here already. So there's back to still 10 in there. Well, maybe we'll get to see another one. It's kind of slow. Now here we go. We can watch this one. See him send out, and he just did a request, and that That was the empty going back. So anyways, these right here will feed all these different tanks of fluids. The benzene and naphtha and light fuel and whatnot I use for my processing. The butadiene is the real reason that drove this, is because you need this here for the second tier rubber. And then the propane I just have excess of, so that's why I'm using it to power with the LPG, the biodiesel setup. So it's a very weird interconnected mesh of power delivery systems that I use. This right here is actually the only artifact left. If you notice, there's this big gap right here. There used to be 8 coal oven or coke ovens here. Most of them have been converted to the benzene production over there as advanced coke ovens, but there's still this, 1,000 buckets of creosote. Occasionally, I come over here and grab it and refine it to make a lube for my cutting systems. But since there's not that many, you don't really need that much. I'm not really having to do that too often. This here's my large sifter, which is really a great machine to make. It is really fast, which is great and important for sifting, because you can send in all these different things. One thing a lot of people don't realize is you can send your malachite through here, and you get a little bit of extra these little gems, and you can send these gems into the macerator, and you get a little bit of extra malachite for more copper. But there's diamonds and sapphires and whatnot, and rubies. This here's my multi-smelter. I got tired of waiting for the steam smelter, so I've got an upgraded multi-smelter now. This does 32 items at a time. Right now I've just been doing stone because I'm going to be making high-speed rail and decorating areas and stuff. As you can see, I've started decorating this to try to make it not look like I live in a dirt hut in the ground. This here is a future plan. I'm planning on putting an electric train on here to bring oil. You can bring, thousands of barrels of oil, thousands of buckets of oil with large cells, but it just seems kind of cheesy to do that. So I was going to put this rail down and set it up to bring it in. I decorated this this rift that I found here, so it's like this waterfall with something I put in. I put in a bunch of lanterns in there to give it a nice look. Let me see there. So if you want, you can ride with the train and go along through the rift to see the stuff. And over here, it's not really that far away. I found a bunch of chunks that had really high oil levels, and so this 8x8 field has good oil in it, and so I set up an oil drilling rig over here in this chunk, as you can see. And what I'm going to do is, once this is done, it's still producing about 150 or 60 or so per operation, so it's pretty good. I don't even bother putting in. If I need some, I put some pearls in the anchor, but I don't really need any, so I haven't been bothering with it. It just runs whenever I'm in the area. So that's the oil rig that once that's done, I'm going to move it a little bit closer here so I can pump the oil and put it on a train and send it back. I'm going to automate it as well so that it'll shut off when it gets full, so that way I can leave an anchor on it. Let's see, what else? I think that's pretty much most of the stuff in the bottom area. Let's go back to the top. So I've got little rooms that I put in the corner of the base here. This one over here is my base decoration room, which got all a lot of decorative blocks and stuff in it, and the granites and marbles and stuff. This is my Tinker's Construct room, which has got the forge and all the little bits and pieces you tend to collect as you're making your weapons. This was the main room of my base. I had originally a castle, just a generic style castle base, and got kind of tired of it. I wanted to do something different, so I decided to go with more of a Asian theme. So if you see, this is kind of it looks like a Korean castle, These blocks here are the world famous lead bricks. I don't know why I chose sandy brick stairs, but these are actually made out of lead, and it takes a lot of lead to cover this roof. But there's not really too much use otherwise for lead. And as you saw, I've got the lead crops. I haven't completely filled it in yet, and I imagine once I do, I'm probably going to have to replace these with a different water source because they're going to go pretty close to zero production once they're fully covered. The other thing up here, these are my vanilla or Pam's farm, so they're not IC2. I really haven't bothered with them too much. Over here is my food room, so you've got different crops and setups for making and cooking and whatnot. Um, let me think. Over here are my horses. I had looked all over the map and couldn't find any, and then I found somebody who had one chunk in his base not claimed, and so I managed to get two of his horses over there and breed them and bring the baby one back over here. Um, and then Namicon put a spawner at spawn to give people free horses, so now these horses are completely irrelevant. I was going to set up a business trying to sell them to people, so Sturiel's asses and other fine assorted horse flesh, but never took off. Anyways, I think that's pretty much it for the interior of the base. The only other thing I wanted to show you was my new big project. So for EV power, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to use kinetics, and they're going to be way over there. This is going to be the reception station for a train that's going to bring the power to me. I was going to use locomotives, but it turns out that locomotives are pathetically slow and are really, really annoying. So instead of using the train, instead of using locomotives, I'm just going to use normal carts and booster rails. So that'll allow me to do them pretty fast and not have to use EU. This is a little bridge. I called it a wildlife crossing because the train is going to be going fast. I'm gonna have to encase it so someone can cross there if they want to, if they're on foot, and then I'll probably put another one further down. But as we go to the east here, you can see this is my generating station, Barton Creek Hydro Plant. So the train's gonna have to come. It doesn't need to do this. I just thought it would look funny if it did. So I had the train coming all the way down to the bottom here, and this is where shut those off. This is where the kinetics are going to be. This is going to be replaced with the water kinetic, and initially I'll have one, and then hopefully, I don't know if I'll ever get to 4, but I've got enough space for 4. So the reason why I have this little space here is I can automate it so that they only turn on when there's demand for the EU. So you can put a hopper underneath here and have it controlled by redstone, and so the hopper will pull the rotor out from the water kinetic when there's no redstone signal, and so you can do that to empty out the rotors when the local storage batteries are full. I haven't decided what I'll use with the rest of the area. It's possible I might set up HV macerators to work on all the moon dust I brought back with me, because that's got some good side products if you centrifuge them. So I'll probably set up an area here to just use the energy directly and then load the rest of it into the carts and send it back to my main base. So what I did over here is I used sponges to clear out the area inside here. So I pulled out all the water. As you can tell, it's in a as you can tell, this is a river biome, so that'll get me the EU I need. I don't know how much I'll get from it, since the way the algorithm works, the distance between your generator and the next biome change. So these are not really that far away before they change biomes. So I'll probably get hosed on the EU. We'll have to see how well that goes. But anyways, I cleared out the water, then I cleared out this nice deep well, since the initial shafts are only go out a radius of about 3 or 4, but they can go up to like 6 or 7, so I made plenty of room there for that. And once we get this interior set up, I'll put floodgates out to add water back into here, and we can start running the thing for producing power. So that'll probably be a couple months at least, just because of the amount of stuff that needs to go on. This back area I was actually using to harvest red sands or hardened sand for making glass, because it actually outputs a little bit more than regular sand. Let me think. Does that cover everything? I'm looking at my list. I think that does cover pretty much everything. Anyways, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm usually on Discord, more on W Machine Gun, or I'm on Epsilon here as a Sturiel. If you have any questions, let me know. Have a good Christmas.